Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Apple Podcasts. On Android, we recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all your South Florida sports content, including previews on Six Rings Canes of Miami Notre Dame. Make sure that you're checking that out, as well as getting ready for the Dolphins opener with 3 yards per carry and the rest of our Dolphins podcasts. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E, put down your $5, get 50 to play right away. You think Dak Prescott's going to have 1 passing yard in his opener? I would hope so. You can play that one. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E, put down your 5, get your 50. It's prizepicks.com. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Bypass the Apple upcharge for the most heat anywhere, the most heat information, conversation, consternation, celebration, repudiation, whatever it is you want to say. Our guy Eternal is going to be with us here today. You can find him on there, as well as the other hosts on Five on the Floor and 5 Reasons Sports. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. And now, thanks to our guy, Music by Mercy. I haven't introduced this because it was kind of surprised in the last couple of podcasts, but this is our new intro. So we.
Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation, we the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket, open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleeping paths or allowed to mornings. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah, Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
What? We got to get used to the way that cuts. Look at that. It's a little bit different. It goes a little bit longer. I'll talk to Alex about that. That's my fault, though. I didn't know what to turn off. Anyway, let's get to the floor plan. We'll do it here quickly. Eternal's laughing at me, but thanks again to Mercy for doing that. That wasn't
that was nice.
That wasn't me on the mic. All right, we've got Eternal Bast. You can follow him there at Eternal Bast on X, Twitter, whatever it's called, and everywhere else. Also find him on Discord, playback, our in-game content, which we're going to be tweaking a little bit this year, but we'll talk about that more as we get up closer to it. But we are resuming our State of the Heat series. We have had 6 guests, the State of the Miami Heat. I am not going to give you the words now. I'm trying to remember them, and I'll give them to you after the break. I don't write them down. Alex, Greg, Brady, Adele, Sean, and Major have all been on. Gio's canceled twice, so he'll be on eventually. And then we will have others on. Who am I missing? Matt, right? We got to bring Matt on. Brian, we got to bring on. Brian is too busy with Eurobasket right now, though. He's going crazy on that. We'll talk more about that. But others from the network, probably Ben. We've got a whole crew of people that we can bring on to give their State of the Heat. But we're going to have Eternal do it here. You're hitting 7th. And I'm just going to let you get to your word. We're going to do this the same way that we've done the other ones. You get to your word at the beginning, and then after the break, we're sponsored here today by Real Estate Shop. We appreciate that. On the other side of that, we will get into the other words, and we will see who your word aligns with the most, or your view does. Eternal Bast, the State of the Miami Heat is
heart.
You got to say that. I can't even hear you. I gave you 2 months to come up with this, and you're not even talking into the mic. What is it?
I said heart.
Heart?
Heart. Yes.
Heart. The State of the Miami Heat is heart. I will tell you, that comes off the board. That we were not expecting that. In Vegas, they did not have heart anywhere on there. Let me just challenge you on it first, and then I will allow you to explain it. I'm doing this differently with you because of our relationship. Was there a lot of heart in those last 2 games against Cleveland?
Oh no, that's why. That's why it's the word. That's why it's the word.
Okay. What has changed between losing by 92 points in the last two games and looking like a CBA team, basically, from back in the late 80s, or the Washington Generals, to now all of a sudden it's heart? What has changed?
I think last season was a deconstruction, right, of the Miami Heat as they currently were. You had the end of an era come with Jimmy departure, things kind of changing, especially now going into this season. There's no Kevin Love, there's no Jimmy Butler, there's no Duncan Robinson, there's no Haywood Highsmith. You really only have three people, like you've mentioned before, from that 2023 improbable championship. Well, finals run, excuse me, not championship. But there's only Nico Bam who played in the finals. Nico only played 2 minutes. And Tyler from that Jimmy era build. And so, yes, you still have Jaime Jaquez, but he came really he came late during the season that Jimmy ended up getting hurt against Philadelphia in the play-in. So I think going into this season, especially with how last season ended, how last season basically went for them, I think this season is all about heart, which is why I said that is my word for the state of the Heat.
Okay.
Because
So, well, let's get to it. So, well, if we're talking about heart, okay, that gets back to kind of what the Heat tried to build themselves on, right? Toughest, baddest,
Right.
most well-conditioned, the whole thing. Thing that Zoe reads before games that Pat came up with, that he acknowledged that they didn't embody a lot of those things last year, but they did make some acquisitions that would seem to change that. Hopefully,
Right.
Davion Mitchell, we saw that on the court. Clearly, that's someone who plays hard, but that stuck out, and that's the thing. Like, the way he plays is the way a Heat player typically plays, but it looked different than a lot of the other Heat guys. Andrew Wiggins is a guy where it doesn't always come across. He's smiling a lot more now, but he tends to be a little bit more on the introverted side. Doesn't mean he doesn't care, but he doesn't
Right.
sort of exude that. We know Nico plays with a bit of an edge. We know Larson plays with an edge. That's obvious. That was obvious even in summer league games against Boston. He looked like he hated the Celtics summer league team, which is kind of what they like. And Norm Powell, I'll say this, and then I'll let you take it over here. When I talked to Spo about Norm Powell out in Vegas, just casually, and asked him if he'd met him or anything like that, I said, well, he seems like a nice guy. Like, that's what I've heard from everybody. Like, Norm's a nice guy. He's good with the media, he's good with his teammates. And he goes, yeah, that's not what we like, though. He has an edge to him. And, his whole brand is the grind and all that. Is that, do you feel like they've leaned into this now? Like, this is the whole idea that we're not going to be, you're not going to sort of mop the floor with us and we're going to mope around like they did towards the end of last year?
I think what they did is they restocked on guys that can turn around the culture, right? You guys had talked about it getting stale towards the end, and because now you have new life in there, not only with the veteran guys, you also have new life in there with the younger guys now being able to have an opportunity to showcase themselves, not only on the court, but in the locker room as well. And so, yeah, I do think they kind of turn the page a little bit. Now, does it have all the flashiness that you're looking for as far as a number one guy? No. But there will be opportunities for guys to emerge and to spread their fingers as far as imprint and impact.
Okay, so let me get into a couple of guys specifically, and then on the other side, we'll get to what people in our network talked about. So, a couple players, okay? I know you're a fan of Kelel Ware, okay? It is clear that the Heat are a fan of Kelel Ware, of the talent. They drafted him. Spo started him before most people thought Spo would start him. Leaned into it a little bit because of the Jimmy thing that was happening, but also he did it, okay? He put him out there, Bam wanted him out there, etc. Goes into this offseason. They have him play Summer League. It's clear that he kind of thought he was a little too cool for school at the beginning of that. Okay, we saw it on the court. You
Oh, yeah.
You're one of his biggest fans in the network. It just didn't look like he wanted to be there. Spo comes out and does something completely uncharacteristic, and I was standing right in front of him. We did not expect it. He doesn't even like speaking to the media out there. He did it for us. We thought he was doing it for us as a favor, okay, because he was refreshed coming back from Hawaii. And third question he's asked is by Anthony Chang. It's about Ware, and he just unloads in a way that he does not. Like from Pat Riley, that would have been like a Tuesday, okay, like whatever.
Right.
That's the way Pat used to be. Spo doesn't do that stuff. He hasn't. I think the last time he even was slightly critical of a player was Deion Waiters. Okay, before that it was Whiteside, Beasley. Okay, like really, that's who we're talking about. Do you think that Kelel Ware has the motor to be part of this sort of, if we're talking about a heart and hustle grind type team? Because he's going to be a big part of this. Do you think he has that mindset?
I think my response to that is probably how did he respond to it immediately right afterwards? Right, because it could have went left. Like if he was a problem child or someone that doesn't really take well to criticism, the way Spo called him out publicly, he could have went left with it. But I think how he responded, not only on the court, but even with you guys, in media, I think that was a good sign. And I think really what Spo did was really challenge him. And we saw Goran talking to Nico about how, Spo would talk to him. And Goran said he talks to you like that because he expects a lot out of you. And I think that was the main message that came across, is that he expected a lot out of Kelel, and how he responded, not only on the court, but in his words in the interview, was what you wanted to hear from a young guy. And I think that especially conversations with the coaches during the season, and even some of the players, that he is a sponge and he absorbs whatever you put out, right? And I think sometimes, like, we have to remember that these, while they are famous athletes, that these are young guys, right? Like he's, so you're going to have to push a little bit different. Everybody is taught and coached a different way. Obviously, you would want it to immediately jump out at you, but some people need molding in different ways. So I think how he responded was the most important thing.
Well, I'm with you, and I was out there for it, and I was there for his next two games, and the effort was discernibly different, like from the jump. And with him, it's about the little things they want to see. Like he's a walking double-double. We know that. Like the ball's just going to find him for rebounds. He obviously can score on lobs. Okay. He has a little bit of a back to the basket game. There's other parts of his game that I think will come around as he continues to drill them, but he also drifts. He drifts in some of the little things that they want him to do, the screen setting, the boxing out. That's the stuff that's going to keep him off the floor at the end of games. And I thought it was interesting, not only the way he responded, as you mentioned, but also to the media, because I was right there. Ira was asking him tough questions. Kelel is not Hassan. Like I want to be clear on that. He's not, and I'm not want to go over and over on Hassan here, but Kelel is not just out there for himself, which I think was the big problem with Hassan. And I think he does care. I just think he shows it in a different way. And I think Wiggins does also, by the way, and I think that's going to be part of it. I think Norm is going to have a dramatic effect on this team in that way. I really do. And because because I haven't really watched him much. I've talked to people about him, and I know we had Mark Jones on and talked about him a lot and being impressed with him. But if you just watch the way he works in the offseason with his foundation, with what he kind of embodies, I think Spo's going to lean on him really heavily here. And I think that's why he's going to end up getting extended. Right? I mean, don't you? They need a vet, right? They need at least one vet to take the pressure off of Bam.
I'm so glad you finished it like that, because very quickly, while you were talking, the thing that stood out to me was, if there were three guys I'm expecting to be very vocal in the locker room, it is Davion, it is Norm, and it is Bam. We saw Bam get more vocal as the season went on. And if we're talking about hard workers, guys that are going to grind, guys that are going to be very demonstrative, we saw more demonstrative Bam as he looked to the sideline, give me the fucking ball. Like him constantly calling guys into the huddle and assigning like defensive roles and responsibilities and stuff, and holding guys accountable. I think Norm and Davion are going to help a lot with that, especially Davion going into his second season, spending a lot of time at the Heat facility. I think you're going to see a lot more heart, and they're going to be tested because you don't have veterans that have proven themselves in the league, in their locker room, to a certain high level, right? Like you don't have the Kevin Loves, you don't have the Jimmy Butlers, you Don't have any of that in the locker room. Yes, Wiggins won a championship, but he wasn't like a lead guy on that team. So this is going to be the heart test, basically, this season. Nico, can you be consistent? Can you stay healthy? Can you pull things that you learned from Joker in your national team? Can you take a bigger role? Can you take a bigger leap this season? Can you show us that you deserve to be like? It's going to be a test across the board for everyone, which is why I said heart is the state of the Heat.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it has to be. Let's put it that way, because they're a little short on talent, but they've won more games than expected with teams that played hard. And the biggest example of that is a team that didn't make the playoffs, but the 16-17 team that started 11-30 and went 30-11 after that, and they played with toughness. And that was a team with Hassan and Dion on it too, by the way, two guys that get disparaged a lot, but they also had Goran, they had James Johnson, they had they had guys, and had the Ronnie McGrooters of the world. They were short on talent, and yet they won 30 out of 41 games down the stretch, and probably would have made the playoffs if Dion doesn't get hurt with 2 weeks left. So this team has more talent than that team, I think.
I got a question for you,
but
before
it doesn't
we go to
necessarily mean they're going to win more games.
So my question to you before we go to the break: who is the surprise loud voice for you in the locker?
Pelle Larsson.
Okay. Oh, of course you would pick Pelle.
No, it's not. I'm look. People think like I'm infatuated because I watched him out there in summer league, but I'm just telling you, like he has flaws to his game. There's no question. Okay, the shooting. If he is gonna be a consistent 30-minute a game player, he's got to be better from the outside, because teams are gonna test that. Okay, but man, he does not give a damn. He goes to the basket. He doesn't care how he's going to get hit. He's on the floor 10 times a game. He competes on the defensive end. Again, he was playing that summer league game, and I was right there on the baseline. He was playing that summer league game like it was the last game of his life. That is that energy, the energy that Larson bring and Dave bring. And we haven't mentioned this entire time, and I know you have mixed feelings here. Tyler cares too. He cares about developing his game to a large degree. I don't know that he's going to be a vocal leader. I don't feel like that's necessarily his personality, but I feel like he can take on a little bit more of that this year. And I think that Norm being in the backcourt with him is going to help him. Look, one of the problems is, and I think this was a problem Tyler ran into last year, if your backcourt mate is struggling to the degree that Terry Rozier was struggling last year, like, you don't really want to say anything. The guy is not contributing in the way that he can or he should, but you end up in a position where you kind of have to make up for it all the time, sort of silently, and you won't have that issue this time around. All right, on the other side of this, we'll let Eternal focus on the other words that everybody gave. All right, I want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friends over at Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's realestateshopfl.com, or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor, Javier and Amanda. They are all over South Florida, particularly Broward County, from where I live, over on the east side of Broward and Fort Lauderdale, all the way out west, Pines, Miramar, Plantation, Davie, Sunrise. They're doing open houses pretty much every weekend. Townhouses, homes, apartments, condos. They handle all of it. They also can help you find one. They can help you buy one. They can help you sell one. So check them out. It's the realestateshopfl.com, realestateshopfl.com, or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. All right, let's get to the rest of the words. You're going with heart here. So I'm just going to roll them off, okay? And then I'm going to let you pick the one that is closest to yours. I feel like I shouldn't assign names to these because then there's bias, but we'll look past that. Alex, satisfactory. Brady, seeking. Greg, crossroads. Adele, growth. Sean, purgatory. And who am I missing? And Major, mediocre, for the state of the Heat. Where are you going? Forget who said it. What is closest to your view? Because yours is a little more positive because you think that they've infused a little bit of this. I would say the majority of those have been neutral to negative.
I wouldn't say mine is necessarily positive. I think that they inputted guys who have heart, right? And my state of the Heat is more so they're going to be tested. And do you have, especially how the season ended, because they got their ass kicked.
Yes.
They got their ass kicked. And some in
At
particular,
home.
right. And some in particular quit. Like majority of the team quit, right? Those last 2 games. And so How are you going to rebound from that? What you did in the season, yeah, that's cool. The playoffs is what tell per Pat Riley. And I think
Right.
Spo was pissed at the end of that series, especially because we know we're unmatched, like we're outmatched, right? But go out there and fight. And I think guys lost their fight. And so it's like, yeah, coming into this season, especially with some guys with contracts and stuff like that, how are you going to show the fight? There's no Jimmy, there's no distractions, there's none of that now. How are you going to show the fight throughout the season? Regardless of whatever the record is, fight. And that's where the heart is. Can you go out there and be the toughest? You're gonna be outmatched night in, night out. But can you be like it has to be a dog fight. And they are a young team now, and you gotta show that you're going to fight. So I think for me, as far as who aligns with exactly what I'm saying, I think it's Brady and Seeking, right? Like you have to find what you got. What do we have, right? When you look in the locker room, you look at a guy that's suiting up next to you. What do we have? The stats and stuff is cool, but what do we have?
Okay, well, I'll say now you're the second straight one to pick Brady, so I know where this is going because it always goes this direction. It's just like I said, wonder child ends up winning these all the time. But let me ask you one question before we close here, because I know who you think kind of quit at the end, and I think there's more than one guy. By the way,
Oh, there's way more than one guy. Yeah,
there was more than one guy. But I will say this: who is the counter example? Who do you think fought the hardest in that series? Just name me one player out there who kept fighting. Who would you say was first?
kind of hard to pick because multiple guys struggled. Is I know what y'all gonna say. I don't really give a fuck, but I think Nico, even though it was like in garbage time, he fought.
I
In that
agree with you.
last game.
I think there were two guys who cared the most. Honestly, I think it was Davion and Nico.
Yeah, that's who I was gonna pick was Davion too.
Yeah, I think they were the two guys who could walk out of there and say, because look, okay, we can. I know you're feeling about Tyler, and I have feelings about Wiggins. Okay, about the way that what happened there at the end. Bam is the swing guy in this regard, and I don't think Bam necessarily quit. I wouldn't
I don't
accuse
think
him
he
of that.
quit either. Yeah.
But I think he. I just think the weight of the entire season, everything that had happened, that was on his shoulders. I think it overwhelmed him. I give him a little bit more slack on this than a couple of the others. But I give Tyler some slack. I know you don't, but I give him some slack for the fact that literally he was the only guy who could create offense on the entire team. And so, once they loaded up on him, he didn't have any answers, which is something we just talked about. I talked about with Brady. But I think that Hero, Wiggins, Bam, none of them distinguished themselves at the end. And I think where you're at with this is that, and I'm kind of at with this also. I want to see more Jovic because I know he gives a damn. Okay. I know. By the way, Ware did not distinguish himself either. Spo
No,
pulled
he
him
did.
off the court first. Okay. So Ware, Wiggins, Hero, to a certain extent, Bam. The two who didn't embarrass themselves to me were Jovic and Davion. Well, Nico was not perfect, but he was
Oh no, he
trying.
wasn't.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
And Davion tries all the time, and they know that. All right, Eternal, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for injecting a little bit of heart here. We'll have Gio, I think, on next at some point, and then we'll round this thing up. And then I have to give a word towards the end of this, and so I got to pick one of the words and expand on it. So we'll see what I do with that. Anyway, thanks to Real Estate Shop. Thanks, Prize Picks. Have a good day, everybody.